Okay, now we're going to learn in this lesson about life on the home front. Now, I want to go back for just a few minutes and remind you that in the 1920s and 1930s, the U.S. military was unprepared for war. Now, in previous lessons, we have learned that we had the Roaring Twenties, which was a decade of good times. The music was upbeat, the music was fast. People getting rich. It's just a great time in our country's history. So we had just finished World War I, and so many people thought, well, there's really no use for us to have a big military because there will probably not be another war again like what many of our men had been through in World War I. So in the 20s and 30s, we didn't really see a need to have a big military. Now, all that's going to change. The Pearl Harbor attack forced Americans to mobilize or to get ready to fight. Some say that this attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, actually caught America off guard. We were totally unprepared, as I said before, for this. We had troops stationed in Hawaii. We had our Pacific Fleet in the Navy positioned there, but we were not prepared for this, and it was a total shock. Once Pearl Harbor happened, America said, okay, before the war, World War II started, many Americans across the country disagreed on whether or not America should be involved. But after Pearl Harbor was attacked, we decided, okay, it's time for America to get involved. As a result, 15 million Americans serve in the military. We have 15 million young men that go, regardless of black or white or whatever ethnic background they come from. They see themselves as Americans and they want to go help. Now, women during this time, obviously during this time women are not soldiers. If they do serve in the military, they work as nurses, they work in hospitals to kind of help out or work as secretaries. But they're not going to be out on the battlefield. So most women stay at home, and we realized that our soldiers needed uniforms, guns, airplanes, and tanks. And also we needed ships and airplanes and things like that. Well, if all the men are gone and there's no one to work in the factories, who does that leave? Women, that's correct, okay? So women that are staying behind, they go to the factories and they start working where the men once worked. And they start building guns and airplanes and the tanks and big battleships and things like that. Even Ford Motor Company begins to change. Ford stops making Ford vehicles and they start making airplanes and the engines that go into airplanes. All right, U.S. builds during this time 320,000 airplanes. That's mass production. Germany, Italy, and Japan and those countries could not match what we could do in America when we created 32,000 airplanes. That's just a phenomenal feat to be accomplished by one country. But that's because a lot of the manufacturing companies stopped making what they did, like refrigerators, washing machines, and cars and things like that, and they totally switched over to making things that our military would need. During this time also, scientists create new helicopters and airplanes, along with radar and a couple of new technological things that our soldiers can use. Science really explodes during this time. Yeah, factory workers, as I mentioned before, they needed workers. So if all the men are gone, most of the men are gone fighting in the war, where are we going to find our workers? Well, they're going to hire women. Actually, there were 7 million women hired, approximately 7 million women hired during this time. Now, African Americans, I said earlier that some of them went and fought in the war. They really weren't totally allowed to be in war just yet. So these factories, they need workers. They're going to hire women and they're going to hire African Americans. Actually, there are about 2 million African Americans working in factories during this time. Now, organizations back home, companies start pitching in and they help pack up supplies to send to the soldiers. Even children get involved during this time. They start collecting metal and old tires. I've talked to people that were children during this time, And they said, yeah, they could remember going out with their friends to collect metal and tires, and they would take that for the soldiers to have metal to make their weapons, and they just recycled. People rationed food, gasoline, and they also grew what's called a victory garden. I'm going to talk more about that in class. What does it mean to ration? And what are victory gardens? We're going to learn what those are. Okay, as you can imagine, World War II is going to have a big impact on everybody, not just in America, but around the world. But let's focus in this lesson on what happened in America. Nearly everyone had friends or family in the armed forces serving in the military. People read newspapers and watched newsreels about current events. Now, newsreels, people would go to the movie theater and sit down for a few minutes to watch movies that were kind of like the news today that we have. Writers and artists created movies, books, paintings about the war. Popular songs were written to remind people about the soldiers and about supporting the importance of supporting our troops. Now, internment camps. Internment camp is a place where prisoners are held during war times. Now, if you'll remember, after Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese. In Hawaii at that time, the majority of the population of Hawaii was Japanese. So in America, Japanese and Japanese Americans are not really trusted. President Roosevelt orders the creation of internment camps, and he orders over 100,000 Japanese Americans to be, if you will, kind of taken to these camps, kind of like a prison camp. Now, what if you're a Japanese American and you were born and raised here and you've lived here all of your life, and now American troops are coming to your house and forcing you to leave? Or if you're a Japanese American and you have a business that you've started and you've been here forever, you're not supporting Japan. Well, for Roosevelt, he didn't feel like many Japanese Americans could be trusted. He thought they might be spies, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. So he says, all right, during wartime, what we'll do is we're going to round up the Japanese Americans, men, women, and children, and force them to leave their homes. Now, also, Italian Americans and German Americans were placed in internment camps. Obviously, we're at war against Japan, Italy, and Germany, so unfortunately, we really can't trust these people. Thousands of Japanese Americans fought for America. Even though this was taking place and they were being mistreated, they decided they would try to help out with America and win this war, because they don't view themselves as Japanese. They see themselves as Americans first. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this, there's a ton of websites you can go to, but I've written down 4. Historyonthenet.com, LOC.gov, that's Library of Congress.gov. You can go there and see some neat pictures and video clips. Archives.gov. This is a great website too. If you really want to read more about life on the home front or World War II. And also there's Google. You can Google this term, internment camp. You can look up women in World War II, life on the home front in World War II, or anything at all related to World War II, and just hang on to your seatbelts because you're going to get enough information. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Have a great day.